Apriorian modernization theory. Moderns or modernists are those who wish to bring Christianity into the modern era and by this, modernize the Christian nations. This mission requires three factors to be considered. What is a modern people and nation? What defines a modern position compared to a more primitive one? Who is a believer? Who specifically is saved? What are the parameters of salvation? What is the church? Of course, we will then need to explain just why a modern nation is a Christian one, though by the time these factors are discussed, this will be clear to you. The premise of this discussion is that a modern nation is a Christian nation, and a Christian nation, to be considered godly, must have the trappings of modernity. A corollary to this is that if you are proselytizing and not modernizing, you are doing neither right. This question as to whom a believer is, has been answered too simplistically for too long. Belief is not comparable to, let alone synonymous with, head knowledge. That you know evolution is a theory does not mean you believe in it. Most Christians consider the issue of works and faith as an irresolvable dilemma, as if faith was a supernatural force or something having an ethereal quality. Few Christians think faith has relevance to practical events. Devout Christians were more likely to think faith was something gurus might achieve after decades of meditation, than as something fishermen and farmers could acquire during their work. But Jesus worked with his hands, and those who condemned him were the intellectuals and philosophers of his day. Christians are more likely to quote Ephesians than James. Ephesians 2:8-9 For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Whereas James says something different, and some even consider it to be quite the opposite. James 14:14-26 What doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say he hath faith, and have not works? Can faith save him? Be naked, and destitute of daily food. 16 And one of you say unto them, Depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled, notwithstanding ye give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doth it profit? Even so faith, if it hath not works, is dead, being alone. Yea, a man may say, Thou hast faith, and I have works, show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. Thou believest that there is one God, thou doest well, the devils also believe, and tremble. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead? Was not Abraham our father justified by works, when he had offered Isaac his son upon the altar? Seest thou how faith wrought with his works, and by works was faith made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled which saith, Abraham believed God, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. Ye see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only. Likewise also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works, when she had received the messengers, and had sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. That being said, a man could work an eternity at good works and not be saved. But is there not also evidence that faith without works does not get one through the gates of heaven? Luke 11:21-23 Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils? And in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you, depart from me, ye that work iniquity. The issue is not that complicated. The engineer who follows his own path despite claiming the credentials of an engineer, has more faith in himself than his profession. It does not matter how loud he proclaims his learning and his credentials if he does not follow the science of engineering. The point of being an engineer is to build modern structures. To build by instinct is to trade modernity for primitiveness. The church then is nothing more abstract than people striving for modernization. The church is not people or buildings because it is an algorithm. The church is a process, whereas those who are enmeshed in primitivism are lifted out into modernity. But naturally this requires we look at what is modernity. People casually link modernity with the present, but this is a too shallow conception of what it takes to be modern. Let's be frank, there are many primitive and poverty-stricken groups in the world, even today, and they cannot be considered part of the modern world or the modernized world. Thus, we need a better way to distinguish between what is modern and what is primitive. A modern culture is not just what exists in 2024. That idea is too simplistic. Nor would it be wise to equate modern with technology, though of course one needs technology to create a modern culture. But one would hesitate to equate China with modernity despite the advances it has made in engineering. One key to a modern community is that it is replicable. A modern community is not one that is parochial or insular. When a place is primitive, it is tribal, it is personal and informal. One has to be part of the culture, from birth. It is not something that can be transported to other regions. This is a major problem modern cultures are discovering, as are the primitive peoples they are taking in. The modern culture is not infinitely malleable and it cannot adapt to primitive cultures or the ways of primitive peoples. Peoples from the West can migrate and assimilate, because they are heirs to an advanced way of living. People from primitive regions cannot assimilate because their cultures are alienating. This can be argued, but the proof is in the history and even in the rhetoric. We know barbarian cultures have an almost but impossible threshold to reach, to be accepted into their host nation. One can call it racism if you like, but modern cultures are resistant to the primitive lifestyle that is practiced by many recent migrants. But to understand that, one has to understand the sharp distinction that divides the primitive from the modern. As we have said, this is not about the period we live in, not the amount of technology present. The issue goes far deeper. What is modern is replicable. To modernize is to confirm an experimental finding. In the social sphere, we know modern societies live longer. There are steps one takes to modernize one's way of living that will result in a longer lifespan. If lifespan is not increasing, modernization has been compromised. Indeed, it is a contradiction of terms to claim healthcare is modernizing when lifespans are declining. Yet, no one looks at what the criteria is for a society that is modernization. Most observers prefer to talk about economic development. Yet, it could hardly be claimed that an economy is developing if it is not moving towards a more modern structure. Another feature that is intrinsic to modernization is specialization. This occurs apace with technology. As the technical expertise of a nation increases, specialization increases. Specialists are an integral part of technology. But it could also be said that technology requires specialists. We cannot have specialists and specialization if we did not technological systems to absorb the specialized work of highly trained persons. It is obvious that technology requires highly trained individuals, and highly trained individuals are people who learn specific routines for dealing with highly artificial situations. Modernity moves us away from nature. The more modern the civilization, the more artificial the lifestyle. But if the natural rhythms of nature do not dictate our patterns, then the patterns we live by are devised by us. These are algorithms and they are entirely artificial. Modern men live by patterns created by the processes we develop, for achieving certain results. Modernity is a process whereby the circadian rhythms are replaced by algorithms. Even our work-life cycle is a simple algorithm. The more modern we are, the less our rhythms are tied to nature. Modern man purchases his food from a store. He does not live or hunt by the seasons. Yet, behind the loaf of bread purchased from a store are many hundreds of processes. All come together to provide a loaf of bread for a man's meal. But what guides this process and how do they come about? The answer to this is in the concept of specialization. Specialization does not just come about as part of a process of natural evolution. Specialization is a response to something deeper. Rational man always seeks to pay his own way, and he does this by helping others. This requires faith. If we do not trust the other, we will not help him. The lower the trust, the less we will associate with him. Our communities can only grow to the degree we have faith in those with whom we associate with. But even then, if we do not trust them, we will not expel to them, any more than necessary. This fear of the other prevents specialization. Specialization only happens when we are comfortable being somewhat dependent on others. If there is no trust, then everyone will do what everyone else is doing. There will be no specialization. In a specialized economy, I work at one thing and become dependent on everyone else for everything I need. If I spend my life writing, then I have to rely on others to build the house and grow the food I need. This faith, when deep enough, permits some people to spend a lifetime developing space rockets and children's toys. The more the people trust one another, the more complex the civilization can become. Britain became the cradle of advanced civilization because it was a nation where faith was the most evidenced. It was not just a case of there being law against stealing and murder. Faith does not mean everyone is trusted or trustworthy. The British advantage was that poor and rich all felt a need to contribute to the greater good. Faith is not limited to the degree with which people are honest before the law, it is that they are honest to themselves, about their place in the greater scheme of things. When everyone is seen to be pulling their share of the load, those with great ambition and large ideas can apply themselves, more fully,